Attention job seekers. Kings Island is now hiring for the 2025 season. They're looking to fill 5,000 positions. Hello, everyone. Alongside Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans, because that's who we are and that's who we care about. Hey, let's kick this off by thanking our Prestige members. Thank you, Aaron Bort, 330T, Logan Lipper, Brian Hauser, Lil Mac 21, Miss Mandy 1983, Jacob Fix, Stephen Hornack, Damon Barnes, and Eric Grau. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the Prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to the content, exclusive videos, exclusive live streams, and some tiers get some free stuff.
Now, Ryan, if you're ready to take on the challenge, Kings Island, it can be a great place to build valuable experience for teenagers, college-age students. Kings Island, they're going to be holding a week-long hiring event, February 15th to the 22nd, with February 15th being an open house.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me a little bit more about this? I've never actually attended any open house, let alone a Kings Island one. So how's that process work?
You get an opportunity to meet the different managers, supervisors, talk about the different opportunities that are available. You can apply for a job, there on the spot. Then when they have the hiring event, those days you come in, you interview. So it's a great opportunity if you're interested in working this summer. And, you just can't show up and expect to get hired. So let's get that part out of the way. They're not going to hire just anyone. They're looking for, really good associates, whether you're high school, college, maybe you're an adult looking to supplement your income. You're a teacher. You need something to do in the summer. Or, you're retired and you want to work 3 or 4 days a week. So it's a perfect opportunity for that at Kings Island. But some pro tips that might help you land a job there. And the first one is, before submitting your application, make sure that you read the job description. You know exactly what you're applying for. You're competing with other applicants. Some positions, there's not a lot of opportunity. There might only be 4 or 5 open spots. So you got to bring your A game to the interview, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of competition for these spots, a lot of spots, but a lot of people want to work there because there are a lot of unique opportunities when it comes to theme parks where you can't work a ride if you work for McDonald's or La Rosa's or any place like that. But aside from being able to do these unique things, what are some other skills that you may be able to build, or what are the other benefits of working there?
Well, working at Kings Island, it's going to teach you a lot of different skills. It's going to help you achieve your career aspirations. You're going to develop 3 essential skills for sure, and these are highly transferable skills. So wherever you would go to work after Kings Island, these all apply, and that's communication skills, very important. You'll learn how to interact effectively with guests, team members, and it's in a very fast-paced environment. So that's important. Those interpersonal skills, you'll gain experience working with a diverse team. They help you build strong relationships. The teamwork comes into play here, so you're going to improve your teamwork ability. And, of course, work ethic. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world in whatever you want to do in life, but if you don't have the right work ethic, you're not going to be able to achieve your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. So you're going to develop time management, problem solving, responsibility, skills that are going to serve you well on your career path.
Yeah, and we've had several guests on the show, mainly in the entertainment aspect, but a lot of them have said that they can credit Alton Fitzgerald White. He said, we were discussing his 2-day, when the 2-day shows when he played Mustafa on Broadway. And he was like, the thing that prepared me was doing 3 to 5 shows a day at Kings Island. He's like, It wasn't the same amount of time, but I would spend the whole day performing essentially. And that's exactly what I had to do on Broadway. But, obviously that.
Yeah, he was performing 20 something shows a week, and then you cut it down to, you're on Broadway, you're doing 10 to 12.
Yeah.
If that many, usually your weekends were those, when you had 2 in one day, but the other ones were once a day, in the evening. So for him, I remember him bringing that up, that very much helped him prepare for his career.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for him, and he didn't exactly say this, I'm putting words in his mouth, but this is the way that I interpreted it, is he used Kings Island as a way to prove to himself that he did have the stamina for that. And I just realized you have a Tower Topics cup, Don. You want to share that with the rest of the class? That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Yes, I will share that with the rest of the class. It's Tower Topics little tumbler, and those are going to be available soon for you to purchase. We might also use them as giveaways,
You never know.
but to get one of these tumblers for free, you're going to have to follow us on X, which is Tower_Topics.
Okay.
But that's all coming. We have an exciting line of merchandise
We
that's going
do,
to
and
be
sometimes it's a surprise
developing
to
over the
me.
next year.
But we're not done talking about this because it is a very important thing. And um, uh, Kings Island announced that they're going to be hiring 5,000 associates.
5,000 associates. Let me ask you this, Ryan. Okay, so they clearly stated on their social channels, Facebook, Instagram, X, we're hiring 5,000 seasonal associates. Not we're looking for, we're hiring. So when you hear that, it's February, early February as we record this. As a season pass holder, someone that plans to visit the park early and often, what kind of message does that send to you when you hear 5,000 are going to be hired, which is going to be full capacity? I mean, that's fully staffed. You get 5,000 people into the system, I mean, you're fully staffed. So what kind of message does that send to you?
Nothing short of great news, because if they hire 5,000 associates, as they claim they plan to do, that means both sides of the racer will be running. Every food stand will be operating. Maybe they won't have the rides at the minimum staffing that we kind of feared that they would and heard that they were going to. And nothing can be attributed to staffing. If they're going to hire 5,000 people, then that's a non-issue. So I
Right.
think that
That's the message that I see myself too. When I read that post, it wasn't just Kings Island's hiring for the season, opportunities available. I thought, well, okay, if they're going to be, hiring 5,000, that's going to be fully staffed. That's great news. I can expect both sides of the racer to be open from open to close. I can expect the drink locations around the park to all be open because there would be no excuse for not being able to have these things open. You can't point to staffing if you have the staffing.
What was the number that they threw out in the past? Like when you did the PR for this, was it always 5,000 or?
It was around 5,000. Yeah, I mean, I think there was 2 or 3, 4 times where it was 5,000. Other years it was over 4,000. Once Winterfest came back in 2017, that number became 5,000.
Yeah.
But it was always over 4,000 every year that I was there for the first 13, 14 years. Then it became, we're going to be looking to do 5,000 because they just needed, more associates to help with not only, Winterfest, but you had the daytime event, became a big piece of it. There was a lot more to see and do for that. But Ryan, if you were going to apply for a job at Kings Island and opportunities are available, all areas of park operations, so rides, foods, games, park services, security, admissions, all of it, everything, merchandise. If you were going to apply, what department would you apply in?
That's a tough question because I think that they would probably hire somebody that was convicted of theft from them last year over hiring me. You're laughing, but I'm saying that from the heart. Um, if I was going to work, if I was 21, I'd probably want to work in rides. I don't feel that way anymore. If I had to pick a ride, it would definitely be a coaster or, Boo Blasters or something that's like not out in the sun. I always feel terrible for, the slide attendants and the ride attendants in Planet Snoopy and all that, because they so often just stand out in the blazing sun and then they get a minute and a half of standing under a shelter that doesn't block the sun from them. And, we've had some hot days the last couple of years, and I just, the age that I am now, I don't think that I could handle doing that. But
The bright side, you end summer and you have an amazing tan. So look at the bright side.
or I go down due to dehydration and that's the end of me and I die at Kings Island the way that all my
Yeah.
friends and family predicted.
So you're saying
No, no,
rides?
no,
Okay.
no. I would say probably merchandise.
Merchandise.
If
Okay.
if somebody came down and said you have to work a summer at Kings Island, but you can pick the department, it would be merchandise. For one, I've got, I worked in retail for 10 years, all through high school and college and a little bit after college. So I'm a very, very good salesman. It's indoors. And I genuinely get excited about the Kings Island merchandise. So I think that, their job is to clerk and to recover the store and stuff like that. But, I've had a lot of really good experiences with the merchandise associates, and I honestly think
Hmm.
that it makes a difference. So, I, so yeah, I would pick merchandise. What about you?
Merchandise would be something I would consider. I have a background in retail, managed several different stores, sporting goods stores, sports apparel stores. I would have that experience, and I was good at the customer service part of it, being a good salesperson, but I was also a good
Hmm.
merchandiser. With the setting up the displays for the windows, the different racks around, shelving and those whatever you would have the merchandise on display. So I was pretty good at that. So I could fit there. Rides, I would in my younger days I would have loved to have worked maybe a roller coaster, but I think now if I was going to work rides, I would pick maybe the Grand Carousel or the train. I would like
Yeah,
that, like the
because you
atmosphere,
get to ride the
the
train.
atmosphere around those. Yeah, yeah, but the atmosphere around those two rides. I mean, if you could sit there and work the carousel, you see, all the guests on there, especially for a lot of the younger guests, it's their first kind of big ride that they're on, and that just seeing, the smiles on the guests' faces, and then just listening to the band organ all day. I mean, for me, that would be a great opportunity. So I also wouldn't rule out the food and beverage department. I think especially, if you're looking for any kind of an advancement type of thing, that's a great opportunity to go into food and beverage. I wouldn't want to be on the front line,
No.
for sure on that. Uh, but I don't know if I had to, I would go back to rides, hoping that I got either the train or the carousel. The carousel would also mean I probably also took some shifts at the Eiffel Tower. That would be fine with that. But, I've done a lot of the different jobs that are out there. When I was working in the marketing department, especially in the spring or the fall, there would be times that the park wouldn't have the staffing until later in the day when kids got off school. So I've worked shifts on the Beast. I've worked shifts on the Racer, Mystic Timbers, Diamondback, uh, worked admissions, both scanning tickets and passes coming through the turnstiles, also the admissions windows. I've done that.
Hmm.
Um, Park services, gone around the park, spent 4 or 5 hour shifts just doing nothing but going around the park, just sweeping, cleaning tables in the fest house. The food and beverage department took shifts. Skyline in Coney Mall, worked there, and that was incredibly hard because it was very fast paced, and you had to make the cheese conies really quick, the three ways really quick, but it was fun, a lot of fun, and the Roses, all three locations, International Street, Rivertown. Worked the one in the Fest House too, making pizzas. I didn't work the front line. I didn't cut the pizzas. Um, that stuff was above my pay grade. What I did was, and what I really loved doing is I love making the
Yeah.
pizzas, especially on those fall weekend Saturdays when it was super busy, Columbus Day.
Hmm.
Just sitting in there, getting there at like 11 o'clock, and until 5 o'clock, just making pizzas. And I made good ones too for the guests.
I believe it. Nobody knows pizza like you. Um,
I wouldn't mind it. I mean, I would not mind that if that could be what you did. All that was your role.
yeah.
You're in food service. You're just making pizzas. You know, I would excel in that role.
Yeah. I mean,
But we both know, like you said, but you and I applied. We're not getting jobs there. And also, just another pro tip for everybody: don't use Ryan or myself as a reference.
yeah, unless you're going for a job in like marketing or leadership, they respect us in those departments. Um, no, yeah, I worked at La Rosa's for a while too. I had two jobs, and I worked at La Rosa's during
Mhm.
high school. So I'm kind of nostalgic to that, and same with when I worked at Best Buy. I don't know if I said that earlier, but I had a great time when I worked at Best Buy. I was there for a really long time.
Yeah, retail's fun.
Well, it is a grind, but I was very successful at it. But you know, I've always thought like, man, like I mean, anybody could use a little more money. So like, maybe I could go back to Best Buy for like 2 days a week. Then I was thinking, I remember how they treated those people. Like, oh no, you have to work 2 weekend shifts in addition to a weeknight shift, and like, I'm not doing that, or anything like that. So, um, So yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, it's not easy,
No.
to do it. I think for me though, like I said, I would not rule out applying for the food and beverage department. I think they've got some really good people in that department. Um, Chef Perez seems like a great guy. You'd want to work with him. You get to work with Chef Major, who's now with the corporate team. But just some of the different managers, supervisors. Um, so a lot of times, with jobs too, it's not what the job is, but it's who you're working with and for.
Hmm.
And for me, just knowing who's currently in the food department, I think that would be a good place to be. Especially, games is another one. They've always had great hires.
Hmm.
People that get promoted, they become full time around the park. So that's always been a good department too, in terms of the leadership of it, in terms of the training that you get. People always seem very happy in that department. So there's a lot of. It's really not a bad one. If you want to do it, I was not. I was not really, always looking forward to if I had to work in an admissions window,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to handle, people's money and the credit cards, and that wasn't my idea of a good time. Doing that part of it in the window like that, and it was just you were busy in the morning and you were busy in 4 to 6:30 type range.
Mm.
But the rest of the day was really slow. So you want to be where the action is, where something's always going on, and that's going to be food and beverage. It's going to be rides. It's going to be park services, merchandise shops. Have their moments during the day where it's pretty busy. But there's not a bad spot, and being able to put Kings Island on your resume, later on in life, it's a recognizable name, and if it's between you or two or three other people to get an interview, that's going to stand out. For future employers is that you worked at Kings Island.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, they got a week-long hiring event from February 15th to the 22nd, and the open
Right.
house is the 15th. So clarify for me, the open house you mentioned you can just go in there, talk to the different departments, potentially have an interview
Yeah,
or
how
thing.
it was before, right? Yeah, yeah. So unless they've changed that, yeah, you get an opportunity to go in and talk to the different departments and find out what's the best fit for you.
And then the other dates that are not open house, what are they?
Those are hiring dates where they do interviews.
Okay, so you would have already applied online and scheduled an interview.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way they'd like it to be. The walk-ins used to be with the job fairs that they had. You get. There were times that the line would go out to the front gate to the fest house back in the day. It was incredible the number of people that would come out for the job fairs, and people would get hired on the spot. But now with the technology that you can, have people apply online, not just come in and fill out a paper application. It's a much more streamlined approach. They can schedule interviews for you to come in. It's a more efficient use of your time. You're not sitting there for 3 or 4 hours waiting to be interviewed. You have a scheduled time to come in. So it's pretty well organized.
Very cool. Yep. So hopefully we'll see you out, but by see you out there, hopefully we see you working a ride or a game. We
Yes,
will
that's
not
right.
be there, but hopefully if you guys want to work there, you know the dates and the times, and it'll be a fantastic opportunity for you. Let's move on to buy or sell.
All right. So Ryan, buy or sell within the year, Six Flags will sell 3 to 4 parks, with King's Dominion being the biggest fish in the package.
Sell, because a year's too short. If they said 3 years, I would be a buy.
So you're going to say buy. They would do that if it was
If
longer than
I think a year is
this
too
year.
short. If I had to put money on it, I would say a year is too short of an amount of time to get some sort of deal like that together. Within 3 years, I would say that's a distinct possibility, and I would say that their activities with canceling Winterfest and laying off a ton of people and so on are kind of reminiscent of what you would do before you sold a park.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, bare bonesing it and trying to make it attractive for a sale. But I okay. Now this was a complicated one for me when this one came in because I would say that with the debt, they want to move quick
Mm-hmm.
in terms of dumping some parks. Um, so I think in that respect, the attempt to get something done this year, I would buy that. But I've got to sell only because I don't think King's Dominion is a big enough, you know, the word here was fish, but to be the carrot in a deal for a buyer. That's going to be your signature park that you're acquiring out of. That's not a crown jewel at all. It's a good park, but that's not enough to purchase that park to take on three lesser performing parks or two or three, that just aren't even as good as King's Dominion in terms of performance. So in that respect, that's why I would sell, only because it's not a big enough carrot to really entice a buyer to just take two or three of your lower performing parks off your hands.
Um, I agree, but remember they were when they first acquired the Paramount parks. Now, granted, this was Dick Kinzel's Cedar Fair, so this was like a lifetime ago with all different people and stuff. But he was like, to reduce the debt, we might sell off some of our parks like Worlds of Fun and Valley Fair, and it's like that's like having a garage sale and selling directly out of your trash can. No
Yeah,
offense,
that
but
that
nobody
was
wants those
Worlds of it
parks.
was Worlds of Fun. Yeah, Worlds of Fun was going to be in that group. Valley Fair was going to be in that group, and also California's Great America. So those three parks were going to be packaged off, and that was a very odd time for me because we were having what we called consistency
Yeah.
meetings. And just as that news was breaking, we have the marketing team and the PR people, we're all meeting in Sandusky at this time, and we're like, okay, are they going to be part of us in another year or so? What's happening there? They didn't know what was happening, so that was a rough time, for those employees at those parks when they were in limbo. Fortunately, things changed and they've kept those parks around.
For now, Great America though. Great. It's funny because it seems like sometimes it tells its story. Um, because if you look at Six Flags Over Georgia, you can tell they're committed to that park because they bought out the partners with it. But with California's Great America, they didn't want to mess with the lease thing. So as opposed to trying to save that park, which would have been an SEC filing if they wanted to make an offer that was big enough to, bring that land back or whatever. Um, they, they decided to scrap it after next year, which I think was an accelerated timeline. Remember, we got a lot of questions about what the merger meant for that park, and we both said that it's not good. But
No, that was going to
the thing
expedite it.
that came to mind with the Kinzel comment, and um, so my girlfriend's nephew, who's 4, he's got a little brother that's just old enough now that he can walk and wants to play with toys, and he of course wants to do everything his older brother does. And so the older brother's in that adjustment period, and so every time so they play with the toys, and the younger one wants to play, and he starts screaming at him and stuff, and then his mom says, hey, you have to choose one toy that he can play with because you've got like 4 of them together, so pick one. And he always looks around and he finds like the smallest, crappiest toy and says, you can play with this one. And I feel like that's what they do with the parks. Like, what's the parks we don't want? What do we not care about? That was my thought with the thought process with that. I think that they care about King's Dominion, and I think that they intend for that to be the carrot. But I think that's the carrot that they care about the least. And unfortunately, I don't think that that's going to breed the offers or the
No,
interest that they think it's going to bring, unless they want to sell it cheap.
it can be part of a deal. It can't. Yeah, it can't be the big return for a buyer. It can be part of a two or three parts, but it can't be the king.
I mean, it could be a Worlds of Fun, King's Dominion, and a Canada's Wonderland or something. They just need something on a higher shelf than that.
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
don't think anything on a higher
That would be
shelf.
if you offered those three parks together, that would be attractive to a buyer.
But Canada's Wonderland is too big into the portfolio. That would be a detrimental to the size of the company, as would any of the big 5 or 6 parks now. It's like,
You want to move some parts, you're going to have to part with one of them.
right. And I think that what they're trying to do is minimize that. Well, King's Dominion is only $300 million of revenue, completely arbitrary number I'm making up. While Kings Island is 1.2 billion. So we can't sacrifice that one, you know. But it's going to be tough, and just thank God it wasn't Kings Island that had Winterfest cut and all that stuff. But then again, just imagine like trying to go into a sale and it's like, oh, you want us to buy your park for $750 million, which is what I think it's approximately worth. But you just pissed off your season pass base, which is your number one revenue maker. Like let's work on that,
Yeah, but then a buyer, that takes over that park, they're the hero. They bring back the winter event.
They could, but like you're intentionally putting them into a rebuilding phase. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
it's interesting.
Rebuilds can be good though.
It can be. All right, time for some Six Flags headline news. All right, Six Flags New England announced its lineup for the special events for the 2025 season. That's another park announcing their events. All of the fun ranges from fireworks displays, delicious food festivals, and Halloween fun for the whole family to enjoy. Highlights of this season's events include April 18th through the 27th, Spring Break Days, July 4th through the 6th, Star Spangled Nights, July 26th through August 10th, Food and Brew Festival, September 6th through October 26th, Oktoberfest, September 20th through November 2nd, Fright Fest, presented by Snickers, and then September 20th through October 26th, Kids Boo Fest. Why does Fright Fest run longer than Kids Boo Fest?
I don't know. I really don't. I found that to be a little odd when I saw that Fright Fest went to November 2nd. Maybe it's because where Halloween falls and it's more the scary thing. Stay open that weekend. That's all I could think there.
Or they'll end up adding it. It could have been an oversight where it was a copy from the previous calendar or something. I don't know. I have a feeling that it's going to remain open that extra weekend. I don't know. I don't know Six Flags New England that well, but looks like they've got a good roundup of events. So, you go through the entire season, you have something to look forward to, especially the Food and Brew Festival, which seems to have a pretty long run, July 26th through August 10th. They're going to have
nice 2-week run there.
Yeah. So July 4th, 5th, and 6th, Star Spangled Nights, which will do a fantastic firework display. And, obviously their Fright Fest is a very big attraction. So good on them. Can't wait to hear our events lineup. Okay.
Coming soon, I was told.
Right. Okay. We'll be right back with the listener questions. All right, first listener question, Kenny from Silverton, Ohio. He said, if you had to spend the night inside Kings Island with no access to rides or building, where would you camp out and why?
Well, first, real quick, Silverton, Ohio, that's where during my football playing days I had my best ever game at a field
Really?
there. I only had 2 missed tackles.
Please answer the question, sir.
Yes. It just, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Sometimes you hear, whether it's a song or sometimes you hear a city, whatever, it brings back memories. So that just rekindled memories for me of that. But so if I had to spend the night inside Kings Island, so no access to any kind of like inside building.
He's basically asking where would you pop a tent if you were going to stay at Kings Island?
Well, let's just assume there aren't tents. You just got to find a place to camp out.
Oh.
I would pick a bench around the Grand Carousel.
Yeah.
I think that would be a nice spot. Just lay down on the bench. It's a comfort area for me, being a big fan of the Grand Carousel. You got the Eiffel Tower. It's right over off to the side. You'll get to see that as the sun comes up. The Eiffel Tower would be appearing. So I think for me it would be the bench by the Grand Carousel. What about you?
Hmm, that's a good question. I was gonna say like in the picnic grove because probably no one would bother me if I wanted to sleep in because they wouldn't.
No, nobody's going to bother you
No,
out
not
there,
till like 11 or
especially.
so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're not going to be bothered out there.
Um,
No one would find
no,
you.
no one would find me out there. Um, I like your idea. I think like one of my favorite areas of the park is Coney Mall. So if we're gonna go with the bench idea, then I'd go with Coney Mall. Not that it really matters. But yeah, I'll go with the bench in Coney Mall. Why not?
Okay, that's a nice
It
question.
was.
Uh, Next one is from Greg from Dayton, Ohio. He says, if you could take home one piece of Kings Island history, he's talking about a ride, ride sign, a prop, those kind of things. What would it be?
Mm, carousel horse. Yeah, I would say my
Nice.
favorite thing in the park is the 50th anniversary horse, the one that that Evan Poonstingle named Gary after Gary Walks. I think that is just it looks so good and it's so majestic. It's so perfectly done. So if I was literally, if it's like you can take anything home with you, that would be it. So I've always wanted a
Okay.
carousel horse.
I do too. But I would pick, for personal reasons, I would take the Diamondback ID sign because I'm the one that suggested the name. So there would be that meaning to that name, that logo.
Cool. Next question, Kevin from Ohio. He said, with budget cuts as the unofficial slogan for 2025, would it really be surprising if the train didn't run until Memorial Day when Soak City opens? With Kings Kings Island PR spinning it as they're waiting on parts as a reason it's not open the first few weeks on the season. Um, this would be like a buy or sell.
Yeah, very similar to that segment, but it would not be surprising the way we're hearing things. Might be. So that in that respect, no, it wouldn't be surprising. I would hope not, um, but I would think that that won't happen. I could see it opening a little bit later in the day when Soak City's not opening right at 11, but maybe opening at 3 or 4. Running for 3 or 4 hours. I don't know, but yeah, if they're looking for some savings, I mean that's a place to do it because that's a pretty expensive ride to operate.
Yeah. I don't see it not opening till Memorial Day, but if it doesn't, it 100% will be because they're waiting on a part. And I mean
Sure,
that
sure.
honestly.
Do
Like,
you really?
oh yeah. No, I think it'll open with the park. I think that it being closed would be.
But if they're waiting for a part, are they waiting for a part for two engines?
They're waiting for a piece of track because neither of them can run, and because of terrorism, and probably Trump's in there somewhere.
All right, Julie. All right, Julie from Lebanon, Ohio. She says, if you could make a behind-the-scenes documentary about any ride at Kings Island, which one would you choose?
I'm going to eliminate two off the bat. I know you're going to pick Racer. I'm going to say Beast and Racer because the Beast, everyone knows they designed the ride without any computers and uh, they avoided tearing down trees that they liked. Everybody knows the stories. The Racer, second golden age, we've heard that story. I would say the most interesting one is probably Flight of Fear, and that's the least told story at Kings Island.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one to do a documentary on. Um, yeah, I'll go with that since you made valid points about why you wouldn't want to do the racer, why you wouldn't want to do the beast. There's still so many. I mean, so many people that don't know the story about the beast. You and I have heard it. You and I have. I've told the story, many times. But I still think, anytime that anything about the beast, whether it's on Kings Island socials, my socials, we put it on the Tower Topics Facebook group, any kind of post about the beast, it lights up the scoreboard. So there would be, definitely be interest in that kind of a documentary. But I do think, Flight of Fear, there's a lot there. The story's never really been told about that attraction. So I think that would be the perfect one to do.
I think it would be fantastic. I mean, it definitely is a bias because that's one of my favorite rides, but, uh, I I just think, even the stuff that we covered in Tower Topics when we did the episode on it, um, it dimmed lights throughout the park and stuff. I had heard that, but having it come from you, I know it's true because there's a
Hmm.
lot of lore out there and stuff, but they have a definitive document or like a documentary that defines exactly what happened.
Right.
Um, I think that would be really cool. So I think that would be it. But leave us a comment below. If you were going to make a documentary about a Kings Island ride, what would it be? I'd love to hear it.
Love to hear. Yeah.
And that means that you've listened through almost the entire episode. So thank you for doing that. Don, let's talk about t-shirts.
Tower Topics t-shirts now available. You can go to our Facebook group, and if you're a member of the Facebook group, and you can check it out, all the details there. But it comes in what we're calling a wicked green. They're $22. It includes shipping. Got the Tower Topics logo, on the front of the shirt. Real nice looking shirt. So if you're a fan of the show, you're excited about the upcoming Kings Island season, you want to show, your love for Kings Island, your support of the show, get a Tower Topics t-shirt. Again, just $22, includes shipping. Send us a direct message on our X, which is Tower_Topics, or you can send me a email, which is Don Helbig at themeparksbydon.com.
Yeah, Don Helbig at themeparksbydon.com. And just to show you how much we're committed to this, $22 includes shipping, and we are taking a super haircut because shipping's expensive nowadays.
Shipping's expensive, and t-shirt cost, they went up, so yeah, I mean, but we're not raising the price because for us, it's more about,
It's like, honestly, we didn't make much in the first place. So I'm just flattered that people like the
yeah.
show enough to wear it. And when I see it around the park where somebody I don't know, it like blows my freaking mind. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, it's it seemed to be to me, once we got into like right after, 4th of July, I don't think I visited Kings Island once where I didn't run into at least one person wearing a Tower Topics t-shirt.
Yeah. You hit true celebrity status when you see somebody wearing a Tower Topics t-shirt and you pass them. Like I told you the story a few weeks ago, and I was like, "Hey man, nice t-shirt," and the person looked at me like I was insane. And it's like, well, you must be an audio listener.
Well, I had somebody that listens only audio. They weren't watching YouTube or anything, so they had no idea, what you and I look like. But I was wearing a Tower Topics t-shirt, and they started, talking about the show, and they said, "I really love that podcast." And I said, "Well, what do you like about it?" And they started, going on and on. And I said, "Have you ever met Ryan?" And they're like, "No, I haven't met either one of them." And I'm like, "Well, hi, I'm Don." And they were like shocked, like, "Oh my God, I didn't know it was you." So I tried to convince them to watch the YouTube version, but they said they listened to it on their way to work. So they just, you know, I guess it was Apple or Spotify, one of the two or something like that. They said they watched or listened to it on. But yeah, I mean, it's always we always appreciate, all of our listeners, all of our subscribers, and I think we've got a pretty good community out there now that we're kind of building, Ryan, of Kings Island fans.
And honestly, it's like for me, it's like concentrating on YouTube because YouTube takes a lot of my effort and my energy and my creativity and stuff because that's something you see in addition to something you hear. But I sometimes I forget that there are people so committed, but then I look at the numbers and I don't really have to pull up our podcasting service unless I'm uploading an episode and I'm like, wow, that many people listen to it audio. So
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like mentally I judge our success based on YouTube, but then I realize, oh, that's only a part of the pie. It's like a piece of the pie.
Exactly. I guess I fit the audio part because I was a hockey radio broadcaster. So for me, I still look at myself doing it that way. And when you and I are recording, I'm not thinking that this is something people are playing, and watching it on their television, even, at home, sitting on the couch, eating some popcorn and watching Tower Topics. I don't look at it and think about it that way until people tell me that's what they do.
Yeah. For the inverse, when we first launched, not Tower Topics, but Attractions Group, I remember completely judging our success because I thought of it as a podcast. And I thought, we could probably do some creative stuff if we do it on YouTube too, which is the only reason I advocated for doing it on YouTube as well. And I remember, we would have the downloads and it'd be the inverse. Like, why are all these people watching on YouTube? It's a podcast. And nowadays it's like I understand better that people appreciate uh the 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 podcast and the YouTube version. There are YouTube people and there's podcast people. We love you both though, but there's a
Yeah.
lot more fun that happens on YouTube. Yeah, because you can see stuff and sometimes we have visual things you can look at and whatever.
If you know who Pat McAfee is, right? The former Indianapolis Colt punter. Yeah, he was talking on his show. They were showing the media that was there for the Super Bowl, and then he showed a room that had a lot of the podcasters. You know, whether they have it on YouTube or they're just audio. But he started talking about that, and that's how he got started, just doing an audio podcast. And he's just said that is the new age media. I mean, that's where it's at. You know, that's the future of media is podcast. And he talked about how people need to the brands he's talking about need to embrace podcasts just as much as they do that traditional media, because that's where people are getting their information now. That's what they're watching, or podcasts. They're not watching the traditional type news channels as much as they used to, because they don't have to.
Well, and also, locally, let's say WLWT is going to do a story about Kings Island. I mean, do you want to sit through an hour of news for your 30-second segment on Kings Island? Or if you're into Kings Island, do you want to go to the people that just talk about Kings Island? You
Exactly.
know? So I'm sure that there's more journalistic stuff that we could do. Pat McAfee's a nutball. I like him. But
Yeah.
because they, like there's, I'm sure that they'll do like a media tour that we won't get to go to or whatever, but I don't know.
Yeah, but who does that hurt though? If they're doing a media tour of river racers, construction tour, or any other things that are happening out in Soak City. So say they bring out what they call their influencers, the ones that are on their list in March. Who does it hurt when they don't invite us? They don't include us. Not us, because we can still talk about it, in a different kind of way, but we can still talk about it, or we can talk about something else and take everyone's attention just off what they were trying to do. So it's one of those things that sometimes you got to see the big picture, and really, who's going to help us get the word out there about what we're doing. And there was, and it's going to be controversial, when I bring this up, but theme park review with Rob Alvey. There were times that some parks weren't having him. They didn't want him to come to the media events and that. Uh, I was opposite, because I thought, number one, I never had any issues with Rob Alvey, but number two, he had such a big reach with his audience. So why wouldn't I want Rob there? For the opening of like Banshee, Mystic Timbers. So I think sometimes those are missed opportunities. You got to look at the audience, and how it's going to help you achieve your goals in terms of selling tickets, passes, garnering interest. So those are the kind of things that you should be doing.
Yeah, and honestly, I can say in hindsight, for somebody that went to, I mean, both of us were somewhere in the dozens as far as media days for Kings Island are concerned. Like, I think the invite and getting to go and getting to experience that is way cooler than the actual attribute to what you're trying to do. Like for us, like if we got to do a River Racers tour, what are we going to do with that? Are we going to show the photos?
It'd be something, video, photos. It'd go on the Facebook group that we have. And if you're not a member of our Facebook group, please join. It'd be something like that. It'd be on our X. We could talk about it a little bit on the podcast here. We could do YouTube shorts with it, or shorter, while we're out there kind of doing an update on it. We could go live and talk about what's happening with it. So there would be some opportunities, there.
For our standpoint,
For our standpoint,
I think that it wouldn't really move the needle. Like it's like I think
it would
that
help them a lot more than it would help us.
yeah, but with that being said, I kind of like doing the show from the perspective of a guest. I don't really have this huge desire to advocate going to media day or going
Yeah.
off season tours and stuff like that. I've done all that stuff.
Been that, done that, got the t-shirt. I was at from late 1981 all the way through, 2000 when I got hired. I was invited to every single media day event. Some I did have to miss because I was working in pro hockey and traveling and not available on a day that they had a media event, but I was still, invited to every single one. It was always nice to be invited. I didn't have, at that time, obviously, I'm not, there wasn't social media for the most part. I didn't have a blog, so there wasn't anything for the park, you know, where I was going to be able to spread the word or anything like that for them. But what it did for the park was because of my history with Kings Island, being acknowledged as, someone that was like a super fan at the time, that it was third party credibility for the PR team when I would be there, and they would point me out to the media to say, after this announcement or after, everyone gets in their rides, Don Helbig will be available for interviews, over there, kind of a thing. So for them, it was that third party endorsement. And I think that is something that with you and I doing this show, they could gain that third party endorsement. I still have they can do whatever they want, but they can't take away my place in park history. They can't erase that. So it's still valuable to them. So those are the kind of things if they had us out at a media day where our value to them would be, pointing us out to the media that these are a couple people you can talk to about this new attraction. Just like they do with the key ACE members. You have the president of ACE, you have the regional reps. You want to point these people out so the media has somebody besides the park to talk to really, do a really thorough story on it and get the true feedback from those that are going to be experiencing it. The park can say whatever they want, but what matters is what the guests think about a new ride, a new restaurant, a new show.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, because of that, they come to us instead. So they get it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, we do get a lot of questions about the park, and I'll wake up in the morning and I'll check like my Facebook or my X, and there'll be 18, 25 different messages from people with just general Kings Island questions. Sometimes it's about jobs, which we talked about here on this episode. Sometimes it's about, do you know if the show's coming back? Do you know if they're doing any, track work on the Beast? Have you heard anything like that? Or they'll have just general history questions for me. So it's kind of nice, I mean, it keeps me busy, in the morning, getting the different questions and that from people. And, I appreciate them reaching out. My email too, once we started giving the email out to my blog, that also opened, more questions that people could ask, and go in more detail. And you know, if you're a Kings Island fan, you have questions, feel free to reach out anytime. And not speaking for Ryan, but I'm sure he feels the same way.
I get much less people than you reaching out.
But you do get them.
Oh no, I do. But I feel like I've got regulars of people that reach out, and by all means, if you want to like message me on Facebook and say hi or whatever, by all means, do it. But I feel like I get the same few people, but it's not regular. It's not like I'm in a conversation, except for a few, that a lot of them will be like, "Hey, is River Racers going to open on Memorial Day or over Memorial Day weekend with the park?" And I say, "I think it will. I'm confident that it will, but the park hasn't said so."
Yeah. You know what I like, Ryan, is getting the people that will, again, whether it's email, through social media, they'll send me pictures of things they find at like flea markets, things they find on YouTube, not YouTube, eBay, different park memorabilia. Sometimes they'll ask to confirm, was this really part of something that was in the Enchanted Voyage? Do you remember this? So they're trying to get verification of something. Those are the ones I really like too, is getting those because it brings back a lot of memories. for me, when I see some of these props and that they're finding at these different places, and they're wanting to purchase it, but they're wanting confirmation on, is that really from that ride?
You'd be like one of the experts they bring in on Pawn Stars if they brought in a Kings Island thing. That would be. I would have. I have a little bit of respect for you, but I would have ultimate respect for you if they brought you in on Pawn Stars to confirm a Kings Island thing. That would be so cool.
Well, I don't know. I think they could bring you in. They could bring, there's hundreds of people that have worked there over the years. They could bring in for that.
Well, they could, and honestly, if it's stuff, I mean, we talked about the lived experience versus the read experience. So 1992 to now, they probably could bring me in. But if it's a Smurfs Enchanted Voyage thing, like my guess is as good as anybody else's, you know. But anyway, Don, this is the longest T-shirt promo ever, so you better buy one because we talked about it for like 20 minutes.
It
Hey,
is.
I'm Ryan Sir. That's Don Helbig. This is Tower Topics.